Have you ever found yourself promising to change again and again, only to see doubt in her eyes? That look that says she's heard it all before? It's a special kind of pain, isn't it? When someone you care about no longer believes your words. Why is it that we can be so sincere in the moment we promise to change, yet so often fail to follow through? And more importantly, why should anyone believe us the 5th, 10th, or 20th time we make the same promise? The truth is, most of us have been stuck in this cycle at some point. We mess up, we apologize, we promise to be different, and then we repeat the same patterns. It's not because we're lying, it's because we fundamentally misunderstand what real change looks like. Change isn't a promise, change isn't words, change is a process that happens in actions, consistently, over time. And today, I want to talk about how to break this cycle for good. Think about it. If you've been making the same promises repeatedly, there's a reason those promises have lost their power. Words without consistent action are just temporary comfort, both for you and for her. They ease the immediate tension, but they build a deeper, more insidious problem, a foundation of distrust. You see, every time you promise to change and don't follow through, you're teaching her something. You're teaching her that your words don't match your actions. You're teaching her to expect disappointment. And eventually, she stops believing altogether. But here's what's equally important to understand. This isn't just about her belief in you. It's about your relationship with yourself. Every broken promise to someone else begins as a broken promise to yourself. Every time you say you'll change and don't, you're reinforcing your own patterns of avoidance and denial. So, let's start with the hardest truth. If you want her to believe you've changed, you actually have to change. Not promise to change, not want to change, not intend to change, actually change. And real change begins with understanding why you haven't changed already. Most of us avoid change because change is uncomfortable. It requires facing parts of ourselves we'd rather ignore. It means developing new habits, which is hard work. It means being vulnerable enough to acknowledge our weaknesses. Most of all, it means trading the temporary comfort of familiar patterns for the discomfort of growth. The comfortable prison of our habits can feel safer than the uncertain freedom of transformation. Think about it. How many times have you chosen the easy path of temporary comfort over the harder path of genuine growth? How many times have you settled back into old patterns because they were familiar, even when they were harmful? But here's the thing about comfort zones. They're excellent places for hibernation, but terrible places for growth. Nothing meaningful happens in comfort zones. No real change, no genuine connection, no authentic love. So how do we break free? How do we move from empty promises to meaningful change? First, we need to understand the difference between intention and commitment. Intention is what you plan to do. Commitment is what you actually do, especially when it's difficult, inconvenient, or uncomfortable. Anyone can have good intentions. Good intentions are easy. They cost nothing. They risk nothing. But commitment means showing up when you don't feel like it. It means doing the work even when no one is watching. It means prioritizing growth over comfort. Second, we need to realize that meaningful change isn't about grand gestures. It's about small, consistent actions taken day after day. It's about the choices you make when you're tired, stressed, or tempted to fall back into old patterns. Think of it this way. Trust isn't built in dramatic moments of crisis. Trust is built in ordinary moments of consistency. It's built when you say you'll call, and you do. When you say you'll be somewhere, and you are. When you say you'll handle something, and you handle it. These seemingly small moments create a foundation of reliability, and reliability is the soil in which trust grows. Third, and this is crucial, real change requires honest self-reflection. You need to understand why you do what you do. What needs are your current behaviors meeting? What fears are driving your actions? What stories are you telling yourself that keep you stuck? Without this self-awareness, you're just treating symptoms, not causes. You might temporarily change your behavior, but under pressure, you'll revert to old patterns because you haven't addressed the root issues. So take time to reflect, journal, meditate, talk to a therapist if needed. Ask yourself the hard questions. Why do I keep making the same mistakes? What am I afraid of? What am I gaining from these patterns, even if they're harmful in the long run? This kind of honest self-reflection isn't comfortable. It requires facing parts of yourself you might prefer to ignore. But without it, change remains superficial and temporary. Fourth, understand that real change happens in community. We aren't meant to transform alone. We need accountability, support, and perspective from others who can see our blind spots and encourage our growth. This might mean joining a support group. It might mean regular check-ins with a trusted friend. It might mean working with a coach or counselor. Whatever form it takes, don't try to change in isolation. We simply aren't wired for solo transformation. Finally, accept that real change is a process, not an event. It's not a single decision or a moment of clarity, though those can be important starting points. Real change is a journey of daily choices, setbacks, and recommitments. You will mess up. You will have days where old patterns resurface. The question isn't whether you'll stumble, you will. The question is what you'll do when you stumble. Will you use it as an excuse to give up? Or will you use it as an opportunity to learn, adjust, and recommit? This brings us to the practical steps. If you want her to believe you've changed, here's what you need to do. First, stop promising change and start demonstrating it. Actions speak infinitely louder than words. If you've broken trust with empty promises, more promises won't rebuild it. Only consistent action over time will. Second, be specific about what you're changing and why. Vague commitments lead to vague results. Instead of saying, "I'll be better," specify exactly what behaviors you're changing and what new patterns you're establishing. Third, create structures of accountability. This might mean regular check-ins about your progress. It might mean asking for specific feedback. It might mean putting systems in place that make old patterns more difficult and new patterns easier. Fourth, acknowledge your humanity. You will make mistakes in this process. When you do, own them quickly, without defensiveness or excuses. A sincere, "I messed up, and here's what I'm learning from it," goes much further than a perfect facade. Fifth, be patient with the process, but impatient with excuses. Change takes time, especially when you're rewiring deeply ingrained patterns. Be gentle with yourself about the timeline, but ruthlessly honest about rationalization and avoidance. Sixth, celebrate small wins without using them as an excuse to relax your commitment. Every step forward matters, but a week of progress doesn't mean you've solved the underlying issues. And finally, understand that her trust will return at its own pace. You can't control how quickly someone else heals from broken trust. All you can control is your consistency in being trustworthy. Here's what this looks like in real life. If you've repeatedly promised to be more emotionally available, but kept retreating into work or hobbies when things get uncomfortable, real change means consistently engaging even when it's hard. It means setting boundaries at work. It means putting down your phone during conversations. It means scheduling dedicated time together and honoring it no matter what. It means learning to sit with difficult emotions instead of avoiding them. If you've broken trust by hiding things or being dishonest, real change means radical transparency. It means voluntarily opening up areas of your life that were previously private. It means initiating difficult conversations instead of waiting to be caught. It means being honest even, especially when it's uncomfortable. If you've been unreliable with commitments, real change means becoming meticulous about following through. It means under-promising and over-delivering. It means treating commitments to her with the same seriousness you'd treat commitments to your boss or clients. The beautiful thing about this approach is that it's not about convincing her to believe you. It's about becoming believable. It's about transforming into someone whose actions naturally inspire trust. When you focus on actually changing rather than convincing others you've changed, something remarkable happens. You stop being so concerned with how you're perceived and start being concerned with who you're becoming. And ironically, this shift in focus from perception to reality is precisely what makes others begin to notice real change. Remember, she's not looking for perfection. She's looking for progress. She's looking for honesty about where you are and clarity about where you're going. She's looking for the kind of vulnerability that admits mistakes and the kind of strength that learns from them. Most of all, she's looking for consistency, the daily demonstration that your commitment to growth is stronger than your commitment to comfort. So stop saying you'll change. Stop promising transformation. Instead, commit quietly to yourself and let your actions do the talking. Be patient with the process.